offering our humble pranams at the divine lotus feet of Sadguru Sri Madhusudan Sai, who is the founder of Sri Sathya Sai University for Human Excellence. Respected Shefali ma'am, Sai Leela ma'am, members of the university and dear sisters, good afternoon and a hearty Sairam to one and all. The Sri Sathya Sai University for Human Excellence was established with the motto Yogaha Karmasu Kaushalam. Perfection in action is yoga. This university strives to create individuals who are academically competent at the same time ingrained in the ideals of spirituality. Today, we are immensely blessed and humble to welcome in our midst an amazing personality who is deeply rooted in spirituality, Mrs. Shefali Vaidya. Mrs. Shefali Vaidya is an award-winning multilingual author and media professional with a keen interest in the history of Indian textiles and temple architecture. She holds a master's degree in mass communications from the University of Pune. She has over 20 years of work experience in the field of media, film and TV production. She has written columns on temple architecture and textiles in both English and Marathi for the leading publications. During the pandemic, she has worked for the welfare of weavers in the 5 Indian states. She also supports a Vedic Gurukul in Varanasi. Her keen interest in India's rich heritage and culture has made her travel extensively across India, exploring India's temples, arts and crafts. Currently, she is the Chief Curator of the Western Ghats Literature Festival, Coimbatore, and the Chief Curator of Godavari Dialogues, Nasik. Now, we humbly request Mrs. Shefali Vaidya to address all of us.
Hello. Hello. Om Sai Ram. It's a great pleasure to be here. Respected Sai Leela ma'am, Prashanti ma'am, Mohan sir, Usha ji, and all of you students. I can't tell you how refreshing and happy I am to see all of you in saris today. That I think it's just so beautiful. It elevates this whole gathering to a whole different level. You know, when I wear saris, and I am a big sari wearer, I wear saris even when I'm not going anywhere or whatever. But in India's cities, I mean, before I come to my topic, which is about temples, I want to share this little thing with you. So where I live in cities, the sari is becoming increasingly rare as a daily attire. People still wear it for functions and all that, but every day people wearing saris is becoming increasingly rare, particularly as you climb the social ladder. So in my children's school, I am the only parent who goes for every parent-teacher meeting dressed in a sari. And invariably, I am asked this question, what is so special today? Why are you wearing a sari? Now, I have never understood this question because for me, sari is a Indian attire. So why should somebody ask me in India, what is so special today that you're wearing a sari? So I usually answer them that nothing. It's just an ordinary day. But a sari makes an ordinary day special. And you have made this day very special for me because I'm just really thrilled to see all of you wearing saris, and not only that, carrying the sari so gracefully. I'm sure you can do anything that anybody else can do in a sari. You can probably cycle in a sari, play volleyball in a sari, climb a tree in a sari. I can too. I have proof to show on my social media, but that's besides the point. So I'm going to talk to you today about Indian temples, because temple architecture has been an area of study for me for many years now, and it's a discipline that has fascinated me because temples have been in existence in India for thousands of years, and our temples have evolved as much as our culture and civilization have evolved in a way. So if you look at human civilization and if you see the humans' search for shelter, you will see that the first homes for human beings when they started to settle down in one place used to be where? Can anybody tell me? Caves, right? So they scooped out wherever there were natural caves, they either lived there or they scooped out and they made caves for themselves in the mountains and they started staying there. And if you go to Bhimbetka in Madhya Pradesh, you will see that there are amazing cave paintings there on natural caves. And you all should at some point in life. So the human search for shelter started with caves. Then it moved on to small huts, which were mud huts with straw coverings, which you will still find in many parts of India today. Then we moved on to proper pakka houses using bricks, and India knew about bricks and building houses from the Sindhu Saraswati civilization days, as you must have all studied in your civics books, that when we found the remains in Mohenjo-daro and Hadappa and Rakhigadi, we found that the houses there were made of burnt bricks. So we knew how to build houses by stacking burnt bricks one on top of the other for at least 5,000, possibly 7,500, more than that also. And then the human search for architecture started going vertical, right? After building standalone houses, humans started building tall buildings. As you go to any city, you will see these huge tall skyscrapers, one floor above another, 80 floors, 150 floors, 200 floors, whatever. The sky is the limit, literally. Now, if you see the study of temple architecture in India, the earliest temples that you still find in existence in India are in the caves. Just like the human search for shelter was in caves. So you will see cave temples like what you call Leni in Marathi, which are caves which had turned into temples. So you will find them in Maharashtra and quite some places. You will find them in Tamil Nadu near Kanchipuram. Pallavas were very famous for this kind of architecture. You will find them in Odisha. You will find them in Madhya Pradesh. You will find them in Bihar. Then we started building temples by stacking stones one on top of the other, which is where you find most of the old ancient temples are built this way, right from the Brigadishwara temple of Tanjavur to there is a nearby temple here called Bhoganandishwara. How many of you have been there? Very beautiful temple, no? So that is also built stacking stones over stones. Then the third stage was, just like the skyscrapers, the temple Shikhara also started becoming taller and taller. And if you see the Brigadishwara temple, which was consecrated in the year 1010 CE, you will find that the Shikhara has 13 stories. Just the Shikhara. That is again, just like the human secular architecture started moving from caves to standalone houses to tall temples, just like that, temple architecture was also kind of followed a similar pattern. Now, we say that the basic needs of any human being is food, shelter, and clothing, right? But we have something unique that separates us from other animals. What is that thing that separates the human beings from animals? Human beings have this need to turn their surroundings into something beautiful. That is the basis of all art, that is the basis of all literature, that is the basis of all culture, essentially, development of culture. So take food. If food was only meant for filling your stomach, we could have continued to live like the cavemen, right? Just eat fruits from the trees. Why develop this whole discipline called cooking? Why make so many complex dishes? Why serve them in a particular way? There's beauty there. There is a thought put in there. So now if you see a plate particularly if you go to a wedding, and if you see a full meal served to you on a banana leaf, there is a particular order to it. It looks very pretty. It looks very beautiful. It's a complex combination of tastes, colors, textures, everything. So our search for beauty, the human search for beauty, started this whole discipline called hotel management. If it was not our need to make our food look beautiful, this whole discipline would not have been born. Next, when we come to clothing, if we just wanted to cover ourselves from the natural elements, we could have continued to wear tree barks and continued to wear leather. And why have fashion? Why have so many different types of weaves? Why have so many colors? Why have so many motifs? Why have this whole industry called fashion industry? Again, because it is the innate human nature to beautify things, to make something better than it was. That gave rise to a fashion industry. Now we come to shelter. If people only wanted shelter, they could have continued living in caves, right? That was the easiest thing to do. So why build such beautiful buildings? Why make such extensive carvings? Why invest so many man-hours into creating something so beautiful? That is again the human being's quest for beauty. So that resulted in a stream called architecture. And temple building is, according to me, and it's a subjective opinion, is the most amazing part of this discipline called architecture. It's the most sublimely beautiful. So now we'll go to my presentation. My presentation is called Mandir Mantra. Next, please. So who can tell me whose murti is this? Okay, I'm very happy that all of you could recognize this is Narasimha. The reason why I start my presentation with this murti is because there's a story behind it. This murti is from Karnataka. Have you seen it? It is from Belur. So it's the entire temple, the Channakeshava temple, has these huge carvings all around it, right? When you walk on the platform, you'll see this. And these paintings, these carvings are a little above your eye level because they're at least 8-9, they start at about 8-9 feet. So you have to look like this. So a few years ago, I had gone to see these Hoysala temples. And I had taken a guide, I had seen the temples, but I liked the carving so much that I spent a lot of time there. I stayed in that town and I spent all my time around the temple admiring each carving. So I was seeing this sculpture. It is, if you see Narasimha's face, it is Ugra Narasimha. He is actually killing Hiranyakashipu at this precise moment. So you can see his anger, you can see his Raudra Rupa so beautifully depicted in this sculpture. So I was sitting there quietly admiring every little bit of this entire panel. And ahead of me, there were other people also who had come to see the temple. So there was a couple who had come from Delhi. And they were newly married, probably on their honeymoon. Why? Because the Punjabi brides wear those bangles, right? So that's how I knew they were newly married. And these were regular temple-going Hindus, okay? They had gone to the temple, they'd put the tika and all that. And they were seeing the sculptures around. They hadn't taken the guide. And they stopped in front of this sculpture and they were talking to each other right in front of me, so I could hear it. And the wife was asking the husband, "Ki ye kiski murti hai?" They couldn't identify this murti. Because the face, if you can see, it's defaced a little bit. So the husband looked at it for a while and said, "I think it's Hanumanji." And the wife said, "But Hanumanji hai, to unke lap pe kaun hai? Ravan hai kya?" So they were creating this whole, their own version of Ramayana. So I sort of butted in and I told them that no, this is not Hanuman, this is Sri Narasimha and he is killing Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyakashipu is sitting on his lap and you can see from his legs, from the position of legs on Hiranyakashipu that he is actually fighting for his life, right? He's in the throes of struggle. He wants to run away but he can't because he is pinned down by Narasimha. And I explained there is Prahlada on one side praying and the whole beauty of this sculpture. And they were like flabbergasted and they said, "Nobody has taught us this. Nobody has taught us how to appreciate a sculpture. How do you know all these things?" I said, "I've been studying this for a while." Then they said, "Didi, can you please show us around? Aap hame baki ka sara bhi temple dikhwa do." So then I took them around. I explained each sculpture and all that. But the point I'm trying to make is we have become so disconnected from our own culture, from our own roots, from our own system of arts and crafts that we may be devout Hindus. We may know the story of Narasimha, we may pray to Lord Narasimha, but many of us, not all of us, you are obviously a much better, more learned and much more rooted group, I'm very happy to see. But there are enough people here who are not able to find out what a basic sculpture is trying to tell you. And if you study even the basics of temple architecture, there is a book I've written called How All About a Temple that explains the different parts of temples in very easy to understand language. You'll realize that when our temples were built, nothing was built just like that. There was deep thought given behind each element of the temple. There was philosophy there in every little element. There is nothing, not even a stone in an entire temple that is without a purpose. But to know that purpose, you have to understand, first of all, how temples evolved. Just like many of you probably learn music, or probably all of you learn music. If you learn music without learning the notes, can you learn music? No, you can't, right? So just like that, without learning the vocabulary of temple architecture, you can't really understand the discipline that is known as temple architecture. Next, please. So, to go back, how the temple architecture or temples, the ideas of temples evolved in India, we have to go back to Sindhu Saraswati civilization. Never call it the Indus Valley civilization, because it is not. It is a civilization that actually thrived in the valleys between the Indus River, that is the Sindhu River, and the Saraswati River. And nowadays, from the British textbooks, they taught us that, okay, it was Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. But nowadays, when you do new excavations, you find that most of their settlements were actually on the banks of where the Saraswati River used to be. That is why it should be called the Sindhu Saraswati civilization and not the Indus Valley civilization. So in this, we have found, you probably also have studied it in history, that we have found a lot of these terracotta seals with different pictures on it. So this particular picture, it shows a man in meditation. His hands are on his knees. He is wearing a horned headgear and he is surrounded by animals on all sides. So he is interpreted as Pashupati, who is Shiva. So he is known as the Proto-Shiva, like the first ever depiction of Lord Shiva, who is the Lord of all sentient beings. Next, please. So, in the Sindhu Saraswati civilization, from whatever we have found, what do we know about those people? We knew that they knew how to build houses from burnt bricks. We knew that they had a good drainage system. We knew that they had planned cities with well-intersected roads. We knew that they had this great bath, communal bath. We also know that they had terracotta seals with many pictures, like they have pictures of yoga poses, they have pictures of a man fighting a bull, which is like the precursor of the Jallikattu sports that is still being played in Tamil Nadu. But we haven't found anything that can be identified clearly as a temple. But just because we haven't found any remains, does it mean there were no temples at all at that point of time? That is a leap of imagination many people take. But what I feel is, in those days, the temples were probably built out of wood and they were covered with hay or grass. So that is why those structures didn't survive. There may be foundations which were built by bricks, but the actual temple was probably a temporary structure built for the purpose of a particular utsavam or a particular religious function. Even today, when you all have weddings in your homes, you do the mandapam outside, right, which is there for a few days, and then it's taken away. Next, please. So now we come to the earliest temples that we find, which, as I told you, are cave temples. So this is during the time of the Mauryas, that is 3rd century CE, more or less. And this is a cave known as Barabar Caves. It's in Bihar. You see it when you drive from Patna to Bodh Gaya. It's on top of a mountain. You have to climb a fair bit to go to this. This cave complex, and it's a complex of about 4 or 5 caves, it belonged to a sect called Ajivikas, who believed in the Shramana tradition, who believed in monkhood, like the Buddhists and Jains and Hindus also believe. So if you see the facade of this temple, you will see that there are things that look like a wooden arch coming out of it, right? And there are things that look like wooden rafters coming out of it. Now these are not made of wood, these are made of stone. But they're made to look like wood. Why? Because the people who were carving these temples, they had only the wooden template in front of them. So you always build from what you know and go to what you don't know. Till you finish your 3rd grade math, can you do your 4th grade math? No, you can't, right? Till you know how to count from 1 to 10, will you be able to do addition, subtraction, division, multiplication? No. So, when you know how to build in wood, those same people use the same principles to carve this cave out. So, they made this decorative facade which serves no structural purpose. It does not hold the structure in any way. It does not make it strong. It does not help the structure in any way. If you demolish that facade, nothing will happen to the cave. But it looks good and it reminds those people of the older wooden temples. That is why I think that there were temples made out of wood and made out of thatched roof before the caves. It's a pity that they didn't survive. Next, please. So the features of buildings built during this period was they had monolithic pillars, which were pillars carved out of one single stone slab, which you will find in some museums in Mathura, you'll find in the National Museum in Delhi, which has on top the bull capital and the Sarnath capital. Like right now, the new parliament that is built in Delhi, that has that huge replica of the bull capital of Sarnath, right? The original is in the Sarnath Museum. This is the time the stupas start getting built, and the surface is built with bricks, and there are Buddhist viharas and chaityas. Now, viharas are small rooms in a monastery where the monks stayed. So, kind of like your hostel rooms, just like that. They were small rooms with a stone bed where the monks used to stay, 2 monks to a room. And there were chaityas. Chaityas are prayer halls which will have a stupa in the center, and the monks were supposed to pray there. This is Buddhist architecture. Then Barabar caves I already showed you, and this is around 322 BCE to about 185 BCE. Next, please. So this is a typical example of architecture of this era. This is the Sanchi Stupa, which is in Madhya Pradesh, and it is very famous for that toran. And the toran has very, very fine carvings, and the carvings are this fine because they called goldsmiths from the surrounding areas to carve in stone, and the goldsmiths were used to carving very minute jewelry. So they could carve that level of exquisiteness in stone. So you could see in this, there may be some pictures where I show, or you can search it on Google. There are faces which are about this tall, about 2 inches tall. And you can identify expressions on those faces. You can make out if the face is looking surprised, if the face is looking angry, the face is looking sad. In this, and this is done in stone. This is not done in mud where it's easy to carve. This is done in hard stone. Next, please. So this is the Sanchi era architecture, and they had carved railings, gateways around stupas. And some of the examples are, there is a Bharuch stupa, which was in Madhya Pradesh, but Alexander Cunningham, the first director of ASI, he basically lifted the entire railing of that stupa and he put it in the National Museum in Calcutta. And there's a big gallery there, which basically houses the entire railing of this stupa. Next, please. This is the one I'm telling you about. So you can see the detail in the carving there. Next, please. These caves were built by the Satavahanas in Nasik. They are known as Pandavleni. These are also of belonging to the same era, 2nd century CE, BCE. Next, please. In Kushana era, the sculpture started becoming more Greek in their influence, with the influence of Greeks. So the hair started becoming more curly. The drapery started becoming more decorative fold-like, as you can see that the Buddha is wearing a shawl, and you can see that there are multiple folds in there. Next, please. So this is the time, 1st century CE to 4th century CE, where Buddha was first depicted in a human form. Now when I say Gautam Buddha, you have a certain image in your mind, right? You know that the eyes are half open, you know that the hair is curly, you know that the lips are big, you know that the ears are from here to here. These are all representations that started from 1st century CE. Before that, in Sanchi Stupa and all, Lord Buddha is not shown as a murti. He's shown as a symbol. He's shown as a symbol like an empty throne, or a peepal tree, or just slippers, or an empty horse, but never Lord Buddha himself. That started happening around this time. Next, please. So now we come to the Gupta era, which you all must have read that it's the golden era of India, ancient India. And it is true, the Gupta kings ruled in the Doab between the Ganga and the Yamuna, that's the plains of UP. And theirs was a very prosperous empire, and all the kings were very highly educated. They patronized arts, they patronized literature, they patronized temple building. And many of the oldest temples that we find in North India today, they date back to this era. Next, please. So as I said, it's the golden age of India. They patronized arts and architecture. They had rock-cut caves also of Udaygiri and the earliest surviving temples. The timeline is 320 CE to 550 CE. Next, please. So these are the Udaygiri caves. This is close to Sanchi in Madhya Pradesh. And as you can see, this entire panel depicts Varaha rescuing Bhudevi from the clutches of the demon Hiranyaksh, who has abducted her. If you can see that the way the Vishnu, Varaha Murti of Vishnu is shown, it is so huge that if you stand there, I will probably come to the knees of Sri Vishnu. It's that tall. And you can see the Bhudevi that he is holding on his shoulder, and she is shown so petite and so delicate. But Lord Vishnu is shown in such an imposing way, and that particular position, that the body language, the position in which he's standing, is a mudra known as Alida Mudra, where one leg is firm on ground and one leg is kept on top of a stool or a stone or something. That is supposed to show command. And even now, if you stand in that position, when you're talking to somebody, you are basically unconsciously trying to assert your dominance over the other person. That is why Lord Vishnu is shown in that position. You can see that he has this Vaijayanti, and this photograph is not clear, but if you actually see this sculpture, you will see that on the Vaijayanti, you will be able to discern individual flowers. That's supposed to be the garland. It's done so beautifully. And all those secondary figures, they are actually rishis praying to Lord Vishnu. And below you have the Nagas, the Nagaraja and the Nagarani. They are both praying to Vishnu at his feet. Next, please. In the same cave, you see one of the earliest depictions of Mahishasura-Mardini, as you can see. Here she is shown very simply, right? She doesn't have too many ornaments, but her position is depicting power, and Mahishasura is depicted as the Mahisha, and she is killing him not with the Trishul, but with her foot. She is pressing him. That is why she is known as Mahishasura-Mardini. Mardan karke mara. That is why she is shown like this. Next, please. Now we come to the Ajanta frescoes. It's very difficult to do the entire development of temple architecture. It's a journey of at least 2000 years and condense it into 1 hour. So I have to, really go like Vande Bharat Express, skip a lot of stations and go only from major station to major station. So Ajanta frescoes, they started around 2nd century CE and continued up till about 2nd century BCE to about 5th century CE. And in that, they used mostly natural colors, and these paintings are very famous for the dresses depicted of that era, the jewelry depicted of this era. Next, please. So these are the Ajanta caves. Next, please. This is one of the earliest built temples, Hindu temples that we find in India today. This is in Sanchi, around the Sanchi Stupa. If you can see here, there is no shikhara. There is just a small garbhagraha inside, and there is a very small mandapa with 4 pillars. That is for people to go inside, have darshan, come out and sit. But not more than 2 or 3 people can go in at one point of time. Because this was a very early temple, and at that point of time, the temples were primarily meant for individual worship, not for large gatherings coming together to watch a dance performance, to listen to religious discourse, or to have a utsavam at the temple. That happened later, and just as that process started happening, the temple started getting bigger and bigger. They started getting more and more grand. Next, please. This is again a Gupta era temple known as the Bhumra temple in MP today. And if you see what has changed here is that the platform has become big. So you have to climb steps and you have to climb up, and there is a Garbhagriha there. Now here one more very important philosophical concept had come into being, which is you are a mortal, you are living your everyday life full of desires, full of vasanas. But when you go to the temple, you are supposed to elevate yourself. You are supposed to drag yourself from your mundane everyday life, and you are supposed to go and take darshan of God. Which is why every step you take to climb to go to the temple, it is supposed to remind you that on this step I'm going to leave this desire behind. On this step I'm going to leave this desire behind. I'm going to make myself worthy, symbolically, make myself worthy of darshan of God. Then you go up, you have the darshan of God, and that sort of makes you spiritually more pure. Next, please. Now we come to the Bhitargaon temple, which is a brick temple, and you see here for the first time there are Devakoshtas. These are niches in the wall of the temple, and in the niches you find carvings of and sculptures of gods. Next, please. As you can see here, in the niches, some of the sculptures are still there, many are destroyed. Next, please. So this is Krishna and Chanura. He is doing kushti with Chanura. If you have heard the story from the Bhagavatam, that is depicted here. Next, please. So what is a temple and why is a temple built? So temple is built at a holy site known as Tirtha. Now Tirtha means a place where you cross over. Literally it means crossing over. So where are you crossing over? You're crossing over from your base material plane to a higher spiritual plane. That is why that place is known as Tirtha. That is why when you go on a Tirtha Yatra, you are supposed to be dragging yourself from your everyday life, and you are supposed to elevate yourself to a higher energy level. And that is why when you go to Tirtha Yatra, they say that you accumulate a lot of punya. A temple is a place where a devotee can do, we know that, circumambulation, which is pradakshina, gazing at the deity, that's the darshan, offer prayers, flowers and food, which is to do puja. It is a focal point of the community. It is a university, it's a place of learning, it's a stage for cultural performance. So, as the society developed, the temples became the focus of a village's socio-economic and cultural life. So temple was usually built at the center of the village. The entire village was built around it. And the temples had spaces, temples had stages where people could perform dances, they could perform plays. Even now in South India, there are many temples which have a Rangamanchan associated with it, where children can offer their Arangetram, they can offer their dance seva. There is one big stage in Guruvayur. There is a stage in Mukambika temple in Kolur also. In practically every temple, that tradition is still there. Then temples were also universities of learning. So there were Veda Padashalas associated to the temple. There were secular schools also associated with the temple. The temple was a marketplace where people would come from nearby villages, and economy used to run with barter. So if I have rice extra, I will sell rice extra. You have wheat extra. So you give me wheat and you take my rice, that kind of barter system. So that also used to happen in temples. Marriages used to get fixed in temples. Even now they do get fixed in temples quite a bit. So temple was everything. There were temple tanks by this time. And the temple tanks did not only serve the needs of the temples, but they were huge tanks. And all the waterways from the village, they were built in such a way that all the underground tunnels, they empty into the temple tank. So whatever extra rainwater is there in the village, that comes into the temple tank, so that in the summer months, when the weather is dry and when there is drought, the entire village can get water from the temple tank. That was the principle behind it. Temples had lands. So to till the lands, they used to have animals. They used to have cows, they used to have bulls, they used to have elephants, they used to have horses. Because of that, they needed people to look after them. So they employed those people. Then they even had veterinary doctors to look after those animals. So temple sort of provided a kind of learning space, a kind of sanctuary to people from different walks of life. Next, please. So, after the basic temple, people kept on using the religious philosophy that they had learned while reading their sculptures, and they started interpreting it in a temple building. So at some point of time, a temple began to be interpreted as the cosmic Purusha himself. So if you can see here, this is a South Indian temple. You can see that the main Gopuram Praveshdwara is the feet of the cosmic Purusha, and the head is the Garbhagriha. And the eyes and this Sahasrara Chakra is exactly where the deity is, if you see it metaphorically. Next, please. So when we go to a temple, nowadays we just go to the temple in a hurry, we just stand in front of God, we do namaste for 1 minute, we sit for 10 seconds, we take the prasad and we move out. We don't know how we are supposed to worship. So when you go to a temple, actually, you are supposed to worship with all your 5 senses. Kaya, Vacha, Manasa. And you are using your sense of sight, you are using your sense of hearing, you are using your sense of touch, taste and smell. So when you ring the temple bell, you activate your sense of hearing. When you light the lamp, you activate your sense of sight. Then offer flowers, that's dhoop, that's the sense of smell. Then drink tirth and take prasad, that's a sense of taste. And take the heat of arati, that's a touch of, that is the teja of the Pancha Mahabhutas. Next, please. So what are the elements of a fully developed Hindu temple? So roughly they can be divided into 2 things, the Vimana and the Mandapa. The Vimana is actually composed of 2 things, the Garbhagriha where the Murti is actually situated, and the Shikhara on top of that together is known as the Vimana. Then Shikhara is obviously the tallest tapering part of the temple, and it is supposed to represent the Mount Meru, which is the abode of the gods. Next, please. Then there is the Pradakshina Path, the enclosed corridor, which can be inside the temple and which can be outside the temple also. So if the Pradakshina Path is outside the temple, it is known as Sandhara temple. If it is inside the temple, it is known as Nirandhara temple. And traditionally, you were supposed to go around the temple first, do the Bahir Pradakshina first, see the temple in all its aspects, see the sculptures, admire the sculptures, then go inside and then take darshan. Darshan was supposed to be the last part of your temple visit. So the temple building is built in such a way to give you that experience. Mandapa is the pillared hall in front of the Garbhagriha where the devotees assemble. It is also known variously as a Sabha Mandapa, as a Nritya Mandapa, as a Ranga Mandapa, depending upon the activities that are held there. In Nritya Mandapa, because there used to be sevas of dance and music. Ranga Mandapa, because there were plays and kirtans and Bhagavata performances held there. And Sabha Mandapa, because it was also the place where the Sabha could gather together and some Vidwan could give lectures in that space, in that sacred space. Then Ardha Mandapa was the half porch that was built outside the main Mandapa to give it a proportion. When you see my next slide, you will see how the entire thing developed. Next, please. Then, people come to the temple, they do the Bahir Pradakshina, they see all the sculptures, they climb many steps, they tell themselves that, okay, I'm leaving my base desires behind and I'm going to go take darshan. You climb up, you enter the mandapa. At the mandapa, there is a discourse going on or there is a dance performance going on. You enjoy the dance performance. All your senses are now satiated. Now you are actually going for what you came to do for, which is to take darshan. But your mind is so full of the sculptures that you have seen, the music that you have heard, the dance you've seen, the lecture that you have heard, that you need a little moment of calmness to focus all your senses on the divine. So there was a space made between the mandapa and the Garbhagriha known as a antarala, which literally means space. The purpose of that space is to make you pause, to make you realize that, okay, now you've done all this, now you're going to go in for darshan. So now your mind should be focused only on the divine. Then Pitha and Adhisthana is the plinth or the platform of the temple, which is, as I told you, it's built quite high. And Toranas are the typical gateways of the temple, mostly found in North India, you find them more. And Amalaka is the circular rich stone placed on top of the Shikhara in Nagarat style temples. So later on, as temple architecture became a more developed discipline, temples in India can be roughly divided into two broad architectural types. The ones found in North India are usually known as the Nagara style temples, and the ones from Karnataka downwards are known as the Dravida style of temples. Now, the major distinguishing part between these two is that the Nagara style temples will have a circular stone on top of them known as the Amalaka, which looks like a amla fruit. It has got ridges, that's why it's called Amalaka. And the temples which are known as Dravida temples have a flatter Shikhara and they have a stone, capstone on top of the Shikhara, which is known as the Stupi. Next, please. So here you can see roughly what are the different types. So you can see in Nagara style temple, you can clearly see the Amalaka, right? That round stone. Dravida temple, this is actually not a correct picture because this only shows the Gopuram. It doesn't show the actual temple Shikhara. I have to change it. And the third style is a Vesara style, which is kind of a mix of both, which is usually found in MP and in Maharashtra. Next, please. So northern style temple, that's a Nagara style temple, and South Indian style temple. So roughly you can see the difference. You can see that a northern Indian style temple, the Shikhara goes vertically upwards. So your way of looking at the temple, your eye line also, your line of vision also goes from bottom to top. It's vertical. Whereas in a Dravida style temple, the temple is spread horizontally. So when you're looking at the temple, you're looking from the main Gopurams all the way gradually towards the Shikhara. Next, please. This is the example of the fully developed Nagara style temple. This is in Khajuraho. And here you can see that all the elements of the temple architecture that I spoke about before, they are beautifully displayed here. You can see that the Adhisthana is like so high that you have to climb so many steps. There are multiple mandapas and they are built in such a way that your eyes go gradually from the smallest Ardha Mandapa all the way to Antarala to the Amalaka. Right? The line of vision goes beautifully like a curve. The beauty of this thing is stunning. Next, please. So, Dravida temple architecture is roughly divided depending upon who are the dynasties who built those temples, because all of them had their own styles. So there were Chalukyas from Karnataka, there were Pallavas from Tamil Nadu, there were Cholas from Tamil Nadu, there were Hoysalas from Karnataka, and there were Vijayanagaras from Karnataka. There were also Kadambas. Karnataka actually has a huge repository of different kingdoms building very beautiful temples which are still in existence today. Hoysala temples are the most numerous, followed by Chalukya, but there are temples also built by the Nolambas, there are also temples built by the Kadambas in different parts of Karnataka. And in that sense, Karnataka is a very architecturally rich state, as you can see from almost any temple here. Next, please. So this is the Vimana of a Dravida style temple, and you can see the top, that stone, the stupi stone is very clearly seen. Next, please. So the Chalukyan temples are seen in their capital cities at Aihole, Badami, Pattadakal in today's Karnataka. Combination of Dravida and Nagara style of architecture. These people experimented a lot. Aihole and Pattadakal have temples that reflect the changing styles in architecture. And later Chalukyan temples are more influenced by the Pallavas, because the Chalukyas and the Pallavas had this intergenerational rivalry going on. So this king would, the Pallava king would attack the Chalukya king would be defeated. Then 50 years later, that Chalukya king's son would again go and fight the Pallava kings, and that time he would be victorious. So this kept happening. But our style was not destroying temples. Hindu kings did not destroy temples. Their way of showing that you have won over another Hindu king would be to take the murti of the god of that kingdom into their own kingdom, build an even bigger temple there, and worship that deity in all its finery. We did not believe in destroying temples. That is a very Abrahamic thing, that when you win over a kingdom in a war, you defeat the king who is defeated and you destroy all their temples. Next, please. Badami was known as Vatapi. It is the capital. I'm really going very fast in this because each of these could be the subject of a 1 hour slideshow in itself. So Badami was the capital of the early Chalukyas. How many of you have seen Badami? Have seen anybody? Impressive, no? Beautiful, right? So these are sandstone caves cut into cliffs, and they had beautiful bas-reliefs of Shiva, Vishnu and other deities. Kannada inscriptions date the caves to 6th century CE. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Next, please. You can see, and in the evening, particularly in the setting sun, the redness of the stone looks really golden, and it is really stunning when you see these caves, say around 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock. Next, please. This is one of my all-time favorite sculptures of Shiva doing Tandav. It's there in Bangalore airport also. Thankfully, they've put this image and not anything else. And you can see that this is carved from a single stone. And if you can see his hands on that side, it's one hand is coming over the other hands in front, right? It's not easy to do it in stone. Normally, if you would imagine yourself having 5 hands, probably you can do it that easily. But in stone, to give that effect, that one hand is coming out like this over another hand, it requires uncommon skill, it requires uncommon imagination, and it requires a very keen understanding of human anatomy and its beauty. Next, please. This is Trivikrama, that is Lord Sri Vishnu. He is, you know that story, right? That Bali Raja was a king of Kerala, and he was a very powerful king, but the gods felt threatened by him, so they told Vishnu to come down, and he was a very good king, Bali. So Sri Vishnu came as Vamana, and he asked for dana, and Bali Raja said, okay. So then he said, I just want 3 steps of land. So Bali Raja said, okay. So Trivikrama, then Lord Vishnu showed himself in his Virata Rupa, and with 1 step he occupied the earth, with another step he occupied the sky, and the 3rd step was still there, and he said, where should I keep it? And then Bali Raja said, keep it on my head. So you can see that here Sri Vishnu is there, and you can see that that is Bali Raja. He is holding that kamandalu, he is giving that water. Once you give that water, the dan is done, then you can't take it back. And there is Shukracharya behind him who knows that this is Vishnu and he has come to trick Bali Raja. So he tries to drag him behind, and even that is shown in this sculpture. Next, please. This is again Badami. Next, please. Pattadakkalu has a complex of 7th and 8th century CE temples. The name comes from Pattada Kisugolalu, meaning red soil valley for coronation. This was the coronation temple of the Chalukyas. They reflect the fusion of 2 major Indian architectural tribes, that is the Nagara Prasada and the one from South India, which is the Dravida Vimana. The 4 temples in Pattadakkalu are in Dravid style, 4 in Nagara style, and Papanatha is a combination of the 2. Next, please. See, here you can see very clearly, the first temple is Nagara style temple, the central temple is the Dravida style temple. You can see the difference very clearly here because it is one next to another, and third one is a combination of the 2. Next, please. This is the Dravida style temple. Next, please. This is the Nagara style temple. Next, please. And here you can see that both the temples side by side. Next, please. Aihole was a laboratory of temple architecture. They tried building different kinds of temples. There are 16 types of freestanding temples and 4 types of rock-cut shrines in Aihole alone. Again, a UNESCO site. Next, please. So you can see that here they have tried experimenting with a double-storied temple. There are 2 Garbhagrahas. One Garbhagriha is on the ground floor. There is also a Garbhagriha on top. Now there is no staircase going to it, but at some point of time there must have been, obviously, because the pujari needs to go and offer the daily worship to the god on the first floor. Next, please. So you can see how they have experimented with the windows. These are carved windows, okay? They are not grills who are fit in there. They are actually carved out of stone. Next, please. This is known as the Durga temple of Aihole. This is known as Gajaprishthakar. That shape, that oval shape behind, is like the elephants behind, that oval shape. Next, please. Now we come to Rashtrakuta architecture. The Kailash monolithic cave temple in Ellora in Maharashtra is the epitome of monolithic temple architecture in India, which was started by King Krishna I. This temple is inspired by the Pallava temple of Kailashnath in Kanchi and the Chalukya temple of Virupaksha in Pattadakkal. This temple is designed to resemble Mount Kailash, the abode of Bhagwan Shiv. It's the world's oldest single rock-carved multi-story temple complex. The entire temple is carved top-down from a mountain. There are no joints in it. It's carved out. And they have made a Garbhagraha, they have made a Sabhamandap, they have made a Pradakshina Path, they have made rooms on the site, all out of this one single rock. Next, please. So as you can see that thing is the hill, and they have made one big chunk of rock separate from the hill, and they've carved an entire temple out of it. Next, please. Here you can you see the big mountain? And the temple separated from it, and a big rock is separated from it first, and then a temple is carved top down. So they started actually from the Shikhara, and they went all the way down to the bottom. Next, please. This is what is another view. So they've made a Dvajasambham also from that same rock. They've made all these carvings also from that main rock. The steps, everything is made from one big rock. It's not put rock on rock and rock and build. That is easier to do. This is very, very difficult. Next, please. Next, please. My favorite temple. I've been here 12 times. And everybody should go there at least once in their life. Next, please. Next, we come to Pallava architecture. Pallavas ruled from Kanchipuram. They were the first ones to start monolithic rock architecture, which is basically cut out from one single rock. The 5 Ratha temples in Mahabalipuram are one of the earliest examples of monolithic rock temples. Then they also built temples, which are the shore temples of Mahabalipuram. There were more than one now. There is only one now seen. And the Kailashnath temple at Kanchipuram. Next, please. This is the Kailashnath temple of Kanchipuram. Now, if you go back to the Kailash temple of Ellora, you will start seeing distinct similarities. Even though that is carved top down from a stone, and this is built stone on stone on stone. And this was built before that. Next, please. This is the shore temple of Mahabalipuram. Next, please. These are the Rathas. Now, again, if you remember, I told you that initially when they started building or carving out temples, they did not have a model in front of their eyes. So they started imitating the architecture that they were familiar with. Now if you can see this first Ratha, it looks like a hut, no? Even now you'll see many huts like this in India, in different places. So they just replicated the hut into stone and made it into a temple. Next, please. Now we come to Chola architecture. It's an age of refinement of Dravidian art and architecture, just like Gupta era was an era of refinement in North Indian architecture. There are 4 magnificent Chola temples actually. One, the Brigadishwara temple at Tanjavur. The other is the Brihadishwara temple at Gangaikonda Cholapuram, built by Rajaraja Chola, Sat Rajendra Chola. Then there is the Airavateshwar temple at Darasuram, and there is the Kampahareshwar temple of Tribhuvanam. Together, these 4 temples are known as the 4 living temples of the Cholas, and together, all 4 of them are a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Brigadishwara temple of Tanjavur completed around 1009. Sorry. So Brigadishwara temple of Tanjavur was completed, it was consecrated in 1010, completed around 1009. It was built by Rajaraja Chola, and it is a 13-story shikhar where it is crowned by a single block of granite which is said to be weighing more than 80 tons. Now how did they transport this rock in those days without cranes, 13 stories high? Now, there are many theories to it. Some say that they built a long ramp 15 kilometers to a village and they made elephants drag the stupi. Some say that they made the ramp, but the ramp was a spiral ramp and the elephants climbed on that and they got down on that. But there has to be a ramp made, otherwise it's just not possible to take a rock of that weight up 13 stories. Next, please. This is the temple. Next, please. Amazing, no, it is? This is the Darasuram temple. And if you see the man, that is, the man is there to give the perspective. So, see the size of the temple compared to the size of the man who is sitting there and standing there and praying. Next, please. This is the Gangaikonda Cholapuram temple built by Rajendra Chola, Rajaraja Chola's son, who wanted to build a temple that rivaled his father's temple, but he also respected his father enough so that he kept the height of this temple about 15 meters lower than the Brigadishwara temple in Tanjore. He could have made a taller temple also, but he was a good son and he respected his father's achievements. So he made this temple complementary to his father's temple. Next, please. Now we come to my particular favorite temple architecture style, which is the Hoysala temple style. It is a style known as Karnata Dravida. It is there are certain features associated to Hoysala temples. One is that the basis, the pita or the adhisthana is star-shaped or stellate, and the carvings are very profuse. They are fully ornamented. Every inch of the stone is covered with some carving the other, because the stone is something known as a chloritic schist, which is supposed to be very soft when it's mined. It's just like soap. It's as soft. So you can do very fine carving on it. But as it stands exposed to the elements, it becomes harder. There are temples, they built about 1,000 temples in and around the Kaveri basin. Now about 150 of them survive in different stages of preservation. Some of the most famous Hoysala temples are Belur, Halebeedu, Somnathpura, Belwadi, Hosaholalu, Javagal. There are many actually. They built Ekakuta temples all the way to Panchakuta temples. Ekakuta temples means what? The temple has only one Garbhagriha and one Sabha Mandapa. Then they built temples where there are two Garbhagrihas, but the Sabha Mandapa is common. Then they built 3 Garbhagrihas and one Sabha Mandapa. Then they built 4 Garbhagrihas and one Sabha Mandapa. And then they finally built 5 Garbhagrihas and one common Sabha Mandapa, known as the Panchakuta temple. Next, please. This is a Trikuta temple. As you can see, there are 3 shikharas, right? There are 3 distinct Garbhagrihas, but they are connected with one mandapa. This is the temple of Somnathpur, Chennakeshava. This is near Mysore. It's a small temple, not very big. It's one of the last Hoysala temples to be built. But the carvings on these temples are again exquisite. They're small carvings in size compared to Belur and Halebeedu. But in terms of architectural details and beauty, they're really, really beautiful. Next, please. So you can see here, this is Lord Shiva, Gajasuravada. He is killing a demon called Gajasur, which is in the shape of an elephant. So he has killed it. You can see the face of the elephant beneath the feet of Lord Shiva. And he has skinned him and he is dancing the Tandava inside. Can you see? He is holding aloft the skin like this. And he is dancing inside the skin. Now, I don't know if this is the carving or not. This used to be a favorite theme of the Hoysala temple carvers. This is from Halebeedu. But there is one particular depiction of Gajasur Vada where Lord Shiva is holding aloft the skin of the elephant demon like this, and his nail is actually sticking out of that skin. And it's in Halebeedu, right? And it is shown by the sculptor in stone. You can see the nail piercing the skin. You can see the tension. You can see the wrinkles on the skin where the nail has pierced. And you can see the top part of the nail coming out from the leather. And this is done in stone. Not in painting, not in sketches, not in anything that you can repair. And stone is a very unforgiving medium, because once you make a mistake in stone, you cannot go back and erase it. But they have managed to do something of this exquisite beauty and clarity. Next, please. This is again Belur temple, and if you see these are like accordion folds, and they have put in more murtis. This is Vishnu and Lakshmi, and there are their subsidiary devatas, and see how minutely they have carved every little bit. Next, please. This is another very beautiful painting. This is at Halebeedu again. This is Dancing Ganesha. Now, if you see the lower part of this stone has a fault, okay? So the stone edge is curved downwards. Can you see it? Where the rat's leg is there. So it is the fault of that stone slab. Now the sculptor has to convert that fault into a work of art. So what does he do? He makes sure that Ganesha is so heavy that he is dancing on the rat, on the mouse, and the mouse is getting pressed. And that's why its legs are like they're spread, right? They're holding on to the rock. That's why the rock has gone down, if you can see. Amazing, no? You would not even think of details like this, but here is an artist who has interpreted and who has turned a fault in the stone into something that is so sublime and so divine. If you hear about art history lectures, they'll tell you about Michelangelo. He laid himself on his back and he painted the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel and all of those things. But think about the sheer expertise, the sheer imagination, the sheer mastery over the subject that our sculptors had. And they never left their names. Hoysala sculptors, some of them did. But by and large, no sculptor in India has left their names behind. Because their attitude was idanna mama. This is God done through me, but I have not done it. I am just a vessel. I am just a receptacle of divine grace. That is why I could do something like this, but I haven't done it. There's no ego involved there. Next, please. This is another very beautiful temple known as Belwadi in Chikmagalur district. This is a temple that actually survived because it was deep in a forest at that point of time. So when Malik Kafur came to the south in the 13th century, he destroyed many kingdoms, many Hindu kingdoms in South India, and the Hoysalas were one of them, and that is why Halebedu and Belur are destroyed, and you can see the murtis being defaced and you can see a lot of damage done. But this temple survived intact. Next, please. Now we come to the last Hindu empire in South India. After that, Shivaji Maharaj came on the horizon, thankfully. But the last Hindu empire in South India was the Vijayanagar Empire. And Vijayanagar Empire also built a lot of temples, and their style was a combination of Pallava, Chalukya, Chola, as well as Odisha style of temple architecture. They started this tradition of a tall Rai Gopuram built around the temple. So that is why those temples are known, those Gopurams are known as Raya Gopuram, because the kings of Vijayanagar are known as Rayas. Temple pillars often have engravings of charging horses and hippogriffs, that is the Yali. And some of the Yalis have women warriors on them. Particularly if you see the Vithala temple in Hampi, you will see that many of the warriors are female warriors. Next, please. This you must have seen, at least the picture you must have seen. This is the famous Garuda temple. This is actually not even the main temple. The main temple is of Vithala. The main temple is of Vishnu. This is a Garuda Mandapa. But again, to turn that Garuda Mandapa into something beautiful, into something exquisite, they could have simply built a small temple and put Garuda Murti there, no? Why make it like a Ratha? That is the imagination. So those wheels are now fixed there because our people sometimes behave like idiots. But those wheels could actually move when they built it. And there were horses in front of it. Those horses got destroyed. So they have put now elephants there which don't match with the size of the temple. And there was actually a shikhara on top of it. When this temple was found by the Britishers, there are old pictures where there is a broken down shikhara on it, but it was half broken. So ASI then, which was basically led by the Britishers, and they didn't really care for Hindu temples, they just demolished it instead of repairing it. Next, please. See. Next, please. This is the Narasimha. He looks like the Yoga Narasimha, but he was actually a Lakshmi Narasimha. And you can see Devi's hand. The Devi is not there. Lakshmi is not there. She's been destroyed. But you can see her hand going over his shoulders. And you can see that one hand is completely broken, thanks to the Islamic invasions when Hampi kept burning for about 6 months. So this murti was built, it's built of solid granite, and it was built after Krishna Devaraya won a major victory over the Gajapati kings of Odisha. So as I said, our style was not destroying temples. So when he won a victory in Odisha, one thing he did was he got the Odisha sculptors from Odisha into Vijayanagar Empire, and he told them to build a murti of Narasimha, and this is the Narasimha murti that was built. Next, please. Now I'm ending with this. I started with Narasimha. I'm ending with Narasimha. I'm ending with this particular picture. Can anyone tell me why? because it makes me very angry that some idiot would jump over. There is actually a huge bar of iron which is there. It's a locked gate. So this idiot, he actually climbed over that gate, went inside, standing in front of Narsimha with his shoes on, and he thinks he's more good looking than Narsimha. So the reason why I'm ending with this story, I started with the story of Narsimha and I'm ending with the story of Narsimha, is that we have become that people who are completely unmindful of the beauty and the sublime architecture and the murtis and the philosophy that our ancestors gave us. Just because we can read and write in English, and just because we wear Western outfits, and just because we think we are quote unquote educated, we think it's completely okay to disrespect our own traditions, to disrespect our own culture, to disrespect the tremendous work that our ancestors have done, and then we do idiocy like this. And this was then, okay? Now it is probably 1,000 times worse, because now everybody wants to go and dance on Narsimha's lap and shoot a reel and put it on Instagram. At least that time that was not there. But I'm pretty sure now if I go to Hampi, I would probably come back a very angry person. But what gives us the right, the minute we start learning a foreign language, the minute we start considering ourselves educated, what gives us the right to disrespect our culture, our traditions, our sanskars, is the question that I want to leave you with. That is why I'm ending with this picture. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we'll proceed to the question and answer session. Sisters, if you have any questions, you are allowed to ask.
Okay, how many of you know that बाबर का बेटा कौन था? हुमायूं का बेटा अकबर, अकबर का बेटा जहांगीर, जहांगीर का बेटा शाहजहां, शाहजहां का बेटा औरंगजेब. You know, na? Everybody knows. Okay, who was the greatest Chalukya king? Name one. You are from Karnataka, no? Many of you. Name one. Okay, forget the greatest one. Name one Chalukya king. Name one Hoysala king. Who said Krishnadevaraya? Krishnadevaraya was Vijayanagar's greatest king. So I'm asking you, who was the greatest? Which king built Belur Halebeet? Who? Yeah, Vishnuvardhan. Okay, at least you know. But I have asked this question in school full of college students in Delhi and Bombay. They all tell me that Babar ka beta, Humayun ka beta, but the whole thing up till Aurangzeb. But ask them who is the greatest Chalukya king, who is the greatest king of the Gajapatis, who is the king who built the Konark temple. None of them can tell. It's not their fault. They've never been taught. We've never been taught. Our schools only tell us about the greatness of the Mughal Empire. And they'll tell us that the Mughals built us Taj Mahal. उससे पहले तो हमारे पास architecture ही नहीं था. Architecture नहीं था तो ये किसने बनाया? So our history books need to be revamped yesterday. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened still. I grew up in Goa. So Goan temples are very different from temples anywhere in India. There's a reason for it, because they were all destroyed by the Portuguese and they were rebuilt in the 18th century. So there's only one temple in Goa that looks like these temples, stone temples. That survived because it was deep in a forest. So when I was in grade 4 or something like that, we were taken there for a picnic. And that temple looked different from any temple that I had seen in Goa. So I kept asking questions. Why is this temple different? Why is it so different from the temples of Goa? Who built it? But nobody could answer my questions back then. But that thing kept on, like burrowing in my brain like a kida, which I never really forgot. So then I started reading as much as I could about temples. Then I started traveling, visiting temples. Then I met my guru, who is a known authority in iconography. He was the chancellor of Deccan College, Dr. G.B. Deglurkar. And my study became more scientific, more systematic. And then it was no turning back. But it was basically, I think, that first visit that put that germ of temple architecture in my brain. Yes, I have. So there is a mosque there which is known as Quwwatul Islam, which means the might of Islam, and they themselves say that that mosque is built by the remains of 36 Hindu and Jain temples. They've destroyed 36 Hindu and Jain temples, and they've built that mosque using the parts of that temple. And they have themselves said it with pride because they don't feel ashamed about doing such things. They feel very proud. But it really hurts. Yeah. It's a very, very good question, and I'm so glad you asked it. See, there are two things that set apart our ancient temples, the two modern temples. One is obviously the skill of the temple builders. We have lost that skill. Even now, there are people in Odisha, there are people in Tamil Nadu who work in stone. Even now, they do stone carvings and all that. But if you see the quality of those stone carvings, and if you ask them to say carve a Krishna Murti today, and if you compare it to a Krishnamurti to say in a Belwadi Hoysala temple, you will see that the Murti is of Krishna, but that finesse is not there. That kind of delicacy, that kind of bhakti, that kind of expertise is no longer there. And that is partly also because lifestyles have changed. So earlier, when a sculptor is supposed to be carving a murti, there were a set of instructions that there was a sadhana he needed to do. So they needed to be fasting for many days. They needed to be meditating for many days. They needed to be just staring at the stone slab for days till they see the murti emerge in front of their mind's eye. And only after that, they were supposed to take the hammer and chisel to the stone. It was a very slow, very painstaking, very meditative, very spiritual process. That is obviously not there. So the skill has become diluted, even though today people might still build temples out of stone. That is one thing. But secondly, a temple is also meant to be a storehouse of energy, the tapas. The old temples for generations and generations, for hundreds and thousands of years, people have gone and prayed there. It's like you go to Brigadishwara, that's like 1,000-year-old temple. So thousand years, devotees have been going there. They have been praying there, and that energy is still there. So you feel part of it, of that energy also. That is why you feel that kind of serenity when you go to an old temple compared to a temple which is 10 years old. Which temple? Okay, yeah, I've been to Krishnapuram temple. Yes, yes, yes. I've been to many temples in Tamil Nadu actually. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. There are sculptures in those temples where a woman is showing birth, giving birth. She's standing, and you can see the baby's head coming out. So they knew the anatomical processes also that well. So unless you know that, you cannot carve something like this. It requires not just stone carving skills, but it requires knowledges of anatomy, knowledges of philosophy, knowledges of sculpture, everything. Yeah.
So how do we make temple, like temple visits more spiritual in the present
See, that depends on the individual really, but now I see part of what you say is true. Temple going has become transactional, and basically you just want to do it because you want something cool for your Instagram feed. But at the same time, I see a lot of young people like you who are asking me, can you take us on a temple tour where you explain the sculptures and all? So there is a growing interest in knowing our traditions also. There are a lot of courses in basics of temple architecture that are very heavily attended by the young. But I hear you. So I'll share another story from Hampi again. So there was this temple which now is not a living temple in the sense that it has been ransacked by the Islamic armies after Hampi fell, and there is no murti in the Garbhagriha, so there is no worship there. So there is a ASI watchman there, and when I was going inside there, he told me, I was trying to remove shoes. He said, "Mat nikalo. It's not a living temple. You can go." I said, "No. At one point of time, it was a living temple." So anyway, I removed my shoes and I went inside. And just as when I went inside, the Garbhagriha is empty. You can get that smell of bats, like you can see in empty Garbhagrihas. So it was for me very depressing actually. And it was a time also. It was late evening, sun was setting. And I just sat out and sat on the Sabhamantap steps. So then this whole group of villagers came. They were traveling from some village in MP. They'd come in about 15 buses. And they had carried all their food with them, everything. And they had gone to Varanasi and they had taken water from the Ganga. And they were going all the way to Rameshwaram to do the Abhishekam. And they were seeing as many temples as they can along the way. So that whole group came. There were about 35 of them. And they came to see the temple just as I was sitting there, feeling very lonely and depressed. And they all started removing their shoes and they started going inside. The watchman told them the same thing. It's not a living temple. You can wear the chappal. So they said, one old lady in that group said, "Abhi nahi hai to kya hua? Kabhi to rahi hogi murti." And they went inside and they all prostrated themselves in front of the empty Garbhagriha. There's nothing inside. But they still did Sashtang Namaskar. Because obviously that energy is still there. It was a temple, right? So then they came, they did a proper pradakshina, and then they went, and I felt better. I felt comforted. And then just when I was about to wear my shoes and leave, there was a family from Bangalore, an educated family, quote unquote educated family, in their fancy car. They had come there, they stopped the car, there were father, mother, two teenage kids, and just when they were going inside, the mother got a phone call. So she didn't go inside, she was talking on the phone. The father and the children, they went inside, and in like 30 seconds, they were out also. The mother was still on the phone. So the mother, while she was talking on the phone, asked the father, "Kuch andar dekhne layak hai kya?" The father said, "Kuch nahi hai." The attitude difference in these people who said there is nothing to see and they did not even spend 30 seconds there, versus the group of villagers who also saw the same temple. There was nothing there, there was no murti there. But they could see years and years of devotion there and they prostrated themselves. Was astounding. So I think partly it depends on the person, partly it depends on your own sanskaras, and partly it depends on your life experiences as you grow up. And I can see that the picture is not very dismal, but yes, there are a lot of people like you say, and there is no one formula to it. I mean, I cannot say that this is what we can do. A lot depends on how you bring up children in your own homes, basically.
Last question.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, ma'am.
Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes.
First of all, I would like to thank you because within that stipulated time, you gave the information of all the temple architecture in the chronological order. My ambiguity or my doubt is that was these temples built only for the religious purpose of worshipping God? In that case, then all the temples should have a deity and people should just come and worship there for the religious practices. In that case, then Ellora, Ajanta cave, those temples should also have a main deity where people come and do worship, just like Brihadeshwara or Airavadeshwara. Was this just a place of ritualistic practices, or how it connected to the society? What was its benefit or its service to the society?
I told you, no, a temple was basically the focus of the entire socio-economic life of the community around it. Yeah, obviously, the temple had land, so it needed people to till it for them. The temple had animals, so it needed people to look after them. The temple had schools, which served the community around it. The temple had teachers who were coming in from outside and giving lectures. That supported the community. The temple had a marketplace where the people from the community could come and they could sell their ware. The temple obviously employed people to even do things like take care of the waterways, clean the waterways, look after the temple tank. So the temple was a fully functioning economy on its own. And if you read the Cholas were meticulous record keepers. And if you read their records, you will read that they employed X number of people, and they employed everybody from dancers to musicians to doctors to patients to businessmen to teachers to yoga teachers to plumbers to you name it. Metalsmiths who made metal diyas and all for the temple, the murtikas who made all the murtis for the temple, the weavers who actually wove specific cloth for the temple and for the of all the auspicious purposes. So the temple basically provided a one-stop solution for the entire community.
Thank you so much, madam, for your very, very informative talk. And it's very interesting. I'm sure that our students, all of them would have also enjoyed because, basically all our students belong to that culture where they are interested in all these things. And I just want them to recite the Rudram if you can, so that madam can also hear how you, they recite Rudram every day. And so just recite once and show madam.
your enlightening speech about the importance and evolution of temple architecture and why we need to appreciate the beauty of temples, explaining about how each element of the temple has its own purpose. Once again, thank you for your enriching words of wisdom. Before we conclude the session, I would request Dr. Sailila ma'am to present a token of love and gratitude.